that this helps to reduce fears. It is very good when we can trust people and can count on people with whom we can live without masks, right? You can cry. You can be sad. You can tell your mistakes, your defects. But what about my friend? It's myself, right? I am myself, as it should be so in the relationship of parents with their children, right? I have been worried so much, Father, when I see these parents who want their children to be first on the podium always, and he imagines that the child is the best person in the world, and that son begins to be afraid of it. So I have to pretend a character that I am not. I think, priest, that in the joy of being on your program, it's so good that we can find people like that, who like us as we are. That when we make a mistake, like us. When we get it right, like us. Knowing our perfections and imperfections, right? He thinks a trip is much more tasty in a train car accompanied than alone. For sure. That the worst loneliness we can face in life is when we don't have someone to share what we think and what we feel. Because you can very well be accompanied. I often say, Gabriel, that there are some women who have been sleeping with their husbands for many, many years, but they are lonely. Just as there are husbands who have also slept for many, many years with their wives and still feel lonely. Because it is too bad when you need to advance in life, whether from an effective point of view or from an intellectual point of view. And we don't have someone who helps us do this breakthrough. When we realize that we did not evolve what we could evolve, because it was lacking influence for this evolution to happen. And sometimes I keep thinking that much of the origin of the fears is precisely in this ontological loneliness. Let's say, right? The loneliness of being. When I identify that in life I am alone, when I do not have someone to share my deepest feelings, when I do not have someone to share my bolder thoughts. Let's say, what is not yet organized enough to come out. And if you don't go through someone's sieve, it goes out in a wrong way. That's right. Thinking that you are talking this story of being able to trust the other and being authentic, and at the same time does not project our happiness in the other. Pierre Chardin, who is a contemporary existentialist. So, if I project my happiness in my son, it will be difficult for me to be happy. Not that I shouldn't love my son, make dreams for him and such. But when I project my realization in someone, it's that mother who didn't work out in some things in life and dreams that her daughter has to be that way. That is, I saw in a television program the desperation of mothers so that the daughters were models. And the mother spoke like this. I always wanted to be a model. It didn't work. She will be. I mean, the girl has no right to want to be something because her mother projected her. So, when I project my happiness in someone, I will hardly be happy. Or something. We realize thus that in everyday life, people frustrate a lot because little things go wrong. So I wanted to buy that car. It didn't work out. I wanted to make that trip. It didn't work out. Not that I can't do these things, but I think this feeling that I'm smaller than these things is very bad. Because I'm living life because of a person I have designed or something. St. Augustine. Right. When you say that beautiful prayer. Right. Oh, late. I loved you. He says of this God that he was so close and he sought so far. And I think the meaning of happiness is like that too. She is inside of us, and we are looking for far. And when we have a habit of complaining, thinking that things are bad, it's no use. You can have a castle, you can have whatever you want, you will be unhappy. Because inside you don't know yet, right? Be absent from yourself, right? When we are absent from ourselves, our search is very much out and our projections are very big. and we are unbeaten a lot at the time of projections. The meaning of the cross in the lives of all of us, believing in the redeeming power it has in our lives, and even sweeping our mindset, the often masochistic view, which we can do, even from a mistaken view of suffering. First, it is interesting to understand that the cross is a place of redemption, of purification. It is not a place to stay. It is a passage. The cross will always be an itinerary for us to achieve great results. I know that in our Christianity, we were very fixed on the cross. And it's even interesting, sometimes we identify some crosses without Christ. Just to remember that it was a place of the passage, but the place of the Christian. The final destination of every Christian is the empty tomb. It is the resurrection of Jesus who fills us with courage so that we can go through the process of the cross. It is so rewarding for us to identify the positive dimension of the cross. Me, for example, when I look back and remind lost sleep nights because of the studies, I did 2 colleges, a postgraduate, a master's degree. I devoted myself a lot of time to study, and it is not easy to study. As pleasurable as it is to know, there is always that portion of renunciation. I remember my master's degree. Classes started 1 in the afternoon. 1 hour that we can't even read a package insert, right? You study, you sitting, listening until 5 in the afternoon, my God in heaven. It was no joke. No, it was a cross. But what did I want with the master's degree? Just the title? No, I wanted to qualify my priest being. One day I understood and learned that the best way I have to live my priesthood is to seek its purest water, both in the spiritual dimension, also in the intellectual dimension. And I can offer those who pass through my life pure water. Studying for me was a cross experience, yes, of pleasure, but above all of the cross, because it made me have to be. The experience of studying made me have to be. At times I didn't want to be. Do you know what this means in your life? It is very likely that you have a much more demanding daily life than mine. I work a lot. I have an extremely dynamic life, and 70% of it is cross. Thank God I have the 30 of satisfaction. Traveling to me is not easy. Displacement for me is very painful. These comings and goings require me a lot. Withdraw me off my routine. They don't allow me to have a routine. In fact, this is a cross for me, but I know what God achieves in me and with me through this work. So it is a mission that I do with great joy. But the cross is the passage. It is not the definitive place. I do not live on the cross. I live cross experiences. My place is the resurrection. My place is the empty tomb. It is in the empty tomb that I do my experience of being who I am now. I am pure hope. All hope of the tomb is in me. The mother is the tender all day in her hand, the whole day connected in the new song, or she is seeing a talk. She is an exam. My mother faces her suffering very redeeming. I am a priest, I can't live like her. It's a goal of life for me, my mother. A Christianity that I may be able to reach 10, 15, 20, 30 years old. I don't know. The cross is the place of my protection. You know why we will always be exposed when we will suffer. It is the moment of indigence. You enter the hospital and you see the indigence there. We are not even protected by the clothes we wear on a daily basis. Inside the hospital, we use a hospital costume to make it easier to read with us. This already demonstrates that we are indigent. You are not on your high heels. I'm not in my shoe. I don't have my shirt. You are not with yours. We do not wear the clothes that cover our indigence. On the contrary, we wear clothes that show our indigence. That moment, the moment of suffering, the moment of pain, the moment of struggle. Suffering is the indigence. And we are unprotected. When you cry before someone, you are unprotected. Your sensitivity, the other has you in your hands at that time. Now the cross, when I have this internalized brand inside me, which is the conviction, see? It's not the hanging cross. It's not. This is just a symbol that brings us to the cross that is configured in our mind. I know the meaning of Christianity, and so I have a cross in my chest, which is material, which can be taken. But the cross that identifies me is not the one that is out. It is the understanding I have already made of the cross, the meaning of suffering in human life, in the light of faith. It is the cross that I have internalized in my conviction. This is the one that protects me, because she doesn't leave me alone. I know God is with me, because the gospel shows me that. All the time, Jesus makes a point of being with those who suffer. He makes no point in being with the powerful, healthy. He makes a point of walking after those who need him, starting with friends. He just asks for one thing: honesty in the process. Be honest. Learn with me the meaning of being people. To deal with the indigence daily and to have the opportunity to, from this indigence, to experience what we have the most sublime. Because the cross, only sublime realities sprout us. Sometimes we take time to identify what was sublime, but time, when it removes dust from facts, events, we find out how sublime was the result of everything we need to face. My father, Fabio, since I came here for a while, I'm disappointed with some things. I have lost the desire to go to church. It is not a USA, and even to play the guitar I like so much. For me, everything seems to be forced. I've tried every night to pray, ask God to help me. But for me, everything is being very difficult. How can I solve this? And I try, and I want to have more faith. We all need to understand that faith is a gift we receive from God that needs to be renewed. Our adherence to Christ needs to be renewed every day. Often our spiritual discouragement happens when we forget that working for the kingdom is not the same as living the kingdom. Working for the kingdom is part, but before work it takes the experience of wanting this belonging. God cannot do absolutely nothing with our works if, before he does not have our hearts. Often our spiritual fading, it is overwork. What? When we work too much, I go, I play mass, singing, I work, participate in the team. I risk thinking that this activism is already my participation. I risk thinking that all my experience of faith is reduced to these activities. But no, the experience of faith passes, first of all, by my personal prayer, by my experience of the Word. Now, when I do not have this intimate life with God and I just work for him, soon the meaning goes away. We get tired. We are disappointed. We start to think that people's defects are already enough reason to make us give up. That's why I always say, the work we redo within the church is not to give anything else, nothing less than a mere excuse God has to mess with our history. Because when I'm working for him, I have to expose myself. I have to deal with others. And automatically, by exposing myself and having to deal with others, my defects and qualities come to light. This is the opportunity that I will have to improve what I am man. Is not true. I cannot exhaust my experience of God at work that I do, because otherwise we will believe that being inside the church and doing it, and that may already be a source of salvation for us. My work within the church, within the pastoral, can be an instrument of salvation, depending on how we work, depending on how we deal with the mission God gives us. It can be a cause of condemnation, is a danger. I remember that just when I was a priest, about 8 years ago, I followed a case close to a gentleman who was enthusiastic, had a conversion, went to work inside the church, and a short time he was already coordinator of the community. And I began to accompany and identify that work began to awaken within him a series of things that belonged to the context of the old man. That man before conversion, pride, arrogance, began to treat the people who were with him badly. Began to think that authority he had inside the church conferred him up all. These nonsense that we sometimes think we are something, that we are too important. These nonsense that we do not take care of grow inside our hearts. And the thing was advancing in a way. It was so destructive to him that at one point, he almost assaulted a person inside the sacristy in a heated discussion that he wanted to be right in history. And I witnessed the scene. Then with all the freedom I had with him, I said, "Can I give you advice? Leave all the work you do. You were not ready to have authority, nor to work for the kingdom of God. You were still living your dating process with you. It should have lived more time, because if you are not truly in love with Jesus, no work of yours can do well. Human action, it can hurt. If she is not coated with God, she hurts. And that may seem strange. A priest telling a faithful that he should, for the good of his soul, leave the service in the church and participate again in the celebrations. Have the pleasure of entering the church just to pray, to commune with the community, to celebrate with the community. Because you are not ready for work. For us to work to God, our conversion has to be up to date, because otherwise, my people, our work becomes the place of our condemnation. You can see how many people, sometimes you know that there are 20, 30 years ahead of a pastoral, who are already totally emptied of mystical. Because they only work, they stop having love for what they do. I don't need to go far. No. I, as a priest, you who are a priest who watch me, be honest. In many moments of your priestly life, if you do not take care, your ministry becomes one job. We risk becoming a worker from the kingdom. We perform. I'm going there. I introduced a mass. I celebrate that. I attend a confession. I attend a sick. If we don't take care, our activism kills our mystical experience. Sometimes it is much better in the church. We work a little less and balance work with spiritual life. Your prayer life. Then you murder your mystical process for so much that you clung to work and the little that you did. And then we stop testifying, we stop doing well, don't we? You weigh their heart. This is the problem of our pastorals. All of our communities, I'm not afraid to make a mistake by saying this. All our communities are suffering from activism. Of the priests, the nuns, the laity. Therefore, we are giving God our work, but we are not giving God many times our hearts. If I do not allow God to live in me, I've seen in many places, thank God, slow down. But in other times, within charismatic renewal, the servants, who are those who use colorful cullets to tongue. No. Holy Scripture says that true authority is in service. I have authority, and by recognizing the authority that the Lord gives me, it is to provide a service. It only makes sense like that. Our lives in community, my God in heaven, how dangerous we will become a group of people who live together, but have no sense at all. Life loses meaning, loses its taste, if we distance itself from the mystique that gathers us. I want to work for God. I work to God all the time, but I need that before working for God. God to work on me, because only for that the work for God has meaning. It's because when working for God, I'm giving him the opportunity he works. That's why I live. I have difficulties. That. And the moment these difficulties appear in coexistence, because we are all human, the church is human, it is a sinner. The moment these difficulties appear, that's where our Christian spirit will prevail or not. If we are Christians, if we are already evolved in this life in God, we will know how to identify our limits, cut them, and start over. Otherwise, we will die with all our flaws bear us, hurting us in the worst, giving a terrible testimony to those who do not believe. You know that atheism in the world, it is generated precisely by us, we believe. Because the moment he sees me, I say I believe in God. But the other sees me. So, atheism is generated by us who believe. Now, when we are living the dynamics of this God in our history, then we will be an instrument of transformation where we are. Without arrogance, no arrogance, but with. Wow. So be careful, see? If you have been working for God for a long time, try to do this balance. So much so that you worked for Him if He worked on you too. If you worked more than He worked on you, careful. It may be that your work is being an instrument of condemnation and not of salvation. Coordinator of this. Coordinator of it. Coordinator. Beware. What we'll tell in the background at the last moment is how much God coordinated you. But that's how much He coordinated you. Because that's what will make a difference. Is not true? What will save us after everything is that. It's how much we loved. It's how much we were sympathetic. It's how true we were. It's how faithful we were. It's how kind, harmonious generator. We were so much generator of good things. This is what will be valid at the end. Or do you think God will be there? With His curriculum, was coordinator of the pastoral was coordinator of this, was coordinator of that. Papa, I do not believe. From the testimony Jesus gives us, we have no right to believe it, because the God that Jesus teaches us is not legalistic. He is fair and loving. He is fraternal. He is eternal. And you want to put all this in us. So my son, often discouragement comes. The discouragement of work is born. Because we are no longer seeing the fruits of God in our lives. And there's no point in wanting the fruits to be in the backyard of each other if I don't promote the growth of this same fruit in the backyard of my house. But it's a fight, and I need to live this dynamic all the time. I need to be alert. I can't play, because otherwise I also risk forgetting all this, falling into activism. Thank you so much for the opportunity to get in your home, to enter your life, today to talk about such a special theme. So important these days. Everyone is afraid. Fear is part of human life. Because we identify it at the moment we know that we are limited. There is always an expression of fear where there is a limit. We learn this in practical life, not only in theory. In theory, we are writing things, we are reading about it. But it is in the flesh that we experience the strength of fear. You may have already experienced many times when you felt small in the face of life. In the face of events, when life seemed too big to fit inside your heart, and then you were afraid of the future. Tomorrow. You were afraid of people. You were afraid of yourself. You were afraid to face situations. You were afraid to cross borders. Go to other places. To start a new Anaton. You've been afraid of a lot. You are afraid when you are going to educate your child. Fear of not doing it in a right way. Not teaching it in a right way. You are afraid of height. You are afraid of practical things. We are all afraid. It is universal, and it is no problem to be afraid. There are some experts who say fear is part of our survival process. We survive in life because we are afraid. Because it also helps us be careful with things. But it can become the obstacle to our realization when they are bigger than us. When He begins to govern our lives, fear becomes a harmful situation. He will stop us from reaching many things because we were afraid to risk. We were afraid to go further. And that's what today we want to talk about today. And it is with great joy that today we want to address this special theme. So necessary these days, since we live in the time of fears. Perhaps it is a consequence of modern life, of these contemporary times, the fears that are proper to large cities, but also in the inner cities. The fear that affects us all and needs to be looked at so that to the right extent He can help us reach the places to which we truly need to fit in. By the way, Father, the Lord knows that the reciprocal is true, right? And I think this is one of the ways to diminish fears, and we have friends, right? It is so interesting that in this creation of the human being, God made us social animals. Nobody is happy alone. So it is these daily affections, this contact with the human being, this confidence in the human being, which is so beautiful, this reflection on friendship.